From the moment we become self-aware, we begin asking questions that have no simple answers. What is the point of all this? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do with the time I've been given? These aren't questions reserved for philosophers or spiritual seekers. They are deeply human concerns that arise in the quiet moments of life. In the stillness between goals and responsibilities, when distractions fade and silence settles, these questions return. And perhaps the most unsettling part is that the world offers us no guarantees, no roadmap, no universal truth, no promise that our efforts will lead to fulfillment. Still, we search. We have to. We live in a world that is, at its core, unpredictable. Things fall apart without warning. Relationships end, people change, circumstances shift, and even the most carefully laid plans can be undone in an instant. There is no safety net that protects us from loss, failure, or heartbreak. And yet, despite this fragile and often chaotic reality, we continue to yearn for meaning. Not just comfort, not just survival, but something deeper. We want our lives to feel significant. We want to believe that what we do, what we choose, and how we live actually matters. But how do we construct meaning in a world that doesn't provide it for us? How do we continue when nothing is promised? For much of history, people found meaning in religion, tradition, and shared cultural narratives. These systems offered a sense of belonging, structure, and clarity. They told us who we were, what we were meant to do, and how we should live. But in the modern age, many of these frameworks have lost their grip. We are more autonomous than ever, free to choose our paths, our beliefs, and our identities. And while this freedom can be empowering, it can also feel deeply isolating. In this landscape of open-ended possibility, we often turn inward for meaning. We look to personal growth, creative expression, relationships, and experiences. We try to craft meaningful lives through the choices we make. But even then, the pressure can be immense. What if I choose wrong? What if my life never feels meaningful, no matter what I do? These doubts are familiar to anyone who has tried to live intentionally. Meaning is not given. It's built. And the construction is slow, uneven, and often invisible. The search for meaning is rarely about finding something external. It's more about developing a way of being. It's not a destination but a process, a daily orientation toward what matters. And that requires us to sit with uncomfortable truths, that we will never have full control, that life can be unfair, and that nothing we do is guaranteed to last. But meaning doesn't require permanence. It asks only for presence. When we show up fully to our lives, even in their messiness, even in their pain, we begin to sense a different kind of purpose. Not one that shouts, but one that quietly sustains. It's important to understand that meaning isn't the same as happiness. Happiness is often fleeting, tied to circumstances and mood. Meaning runs deeper. It can coexist with sadness, with uncertainty, even with suffering. In fact, some of the most meaningful experiences in life are born from difficulty. Caring for a loved one in decline, facing failure with dignity, choosing love after loss. These moments don't always feel good, but they remind us that we are alive in the fullest sense. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, once wrote that those who have a why to live can bear almost anyhow. His point wasn't that life is easy when it's meaningful, but that meaning gives us the strength to endure even the most unimaginable conditions. That's a powerful insight, especially in today's world, where so many of us feel lost not because life is hard, but because it feels empty. The lack of guarantees makes everything feel fragile. But it also makes everything we choose, every act of kindness, every moment of courage, more powerful. This is where many people struggle. They think meaning has to be big, dramatic, or world-changing. But most of the time, it's subtle. It's found in showing up for a friend, staying true to your values, or creating something honest in a world that rewards performance. Meaning is in the details. The way you speak, the way you listen, the way you decide not to give up. And yet, there's a tension that always remains. Because no matter how carefully we build our lives, no matter how much love or effort we invest, we can't protect ourselves from uncertainty. The future is always out of reach, and so we asked again, how do we keep going? We keep going by accepting that the absence of guarantees doesn't mean the absence of meaning. It means that meaning must be chosen, not discovered. It's not waiting for us somewhere out there. We create it through what we give our attention to, what we care for, and what we refuse to ignore. This shift, from searching to creating, changes everything. It turns us from passive observers into active participants in our own story. One of the most liberating realizations is that we don't need to have everything figured out to live meaningfully. We don't need to wait for clarity or certainty. We just need to take the next honest step. And then the next. Meaning often reveals itself in motion. It's the accumulation of consistent, small actions aligned with what we value. It's found in doing things that may never be recognized, but still feel right. Think about someone who volunteers at a local shelter, not for praise, but because they believe in compassion. Or an artist who keeps creating, even when their work goes unnoticed. Or a parent who shows up, day after day, exhausted but present. These aren't grand gestures. But they're deeply meaningful. They come from a place of purpose that doesn't depend on reward. In a world where so much is uncertain, the act of showing up, fully, honestly, courageously, becomes radical. It says, I will not wait for life to make sense before I decide to live it with intention. I will not let the absence of guarantees stop me from building something beautiful. Still, there will be moments of doubt. Moments when everything feels pointless or heavy or absurd. That's natural. In fact, it's part of being awake to the complexity of life. But those moments are also invitations. Invitations to return to your values, to realign, to reconnect with what matters most. Because meaning isn't something you find once and then have forever. It requires tending. Like a garden, it grows through care and presence. Sometimes it's vibrant, sometimes it's quiet. But it's always worth nurturing. And one of the most powerful ways to nurture meaning is to connect with others. We're not meant to carry these questions alone. Sharing your story, listening to someone else's, being part of something larger than yourself, these are essential. They remind us that while life may not offer guarantees, it does offer connection. And through that connection, we find strength. In the end, the search for meaning isn't about escaping uncertainty. It's about learning to live within it, to build a life that reflects what we believe in, even when no one is watching, even when the future is unclear. So if you're feeling lost, if the weight of not knowing feels too heavy, remember this: you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to stay open. Stay curious. Keep choosing what matters even in the dark. Because meaning isn't waiting to be given, it's waiting to be made. By you. If this message spoke to you, if you've ever wrestled with the same questions and want to explore more, consider subscribing. Here on Mind Lines, we dive deep into the thoughts that shape us, the emotions that move us, and the philosophies that help us grow. Your journey matters. Let's keep asking the hard questions together. Subscribe now and let's build meaning, one thought at a time.